Oh my gosh. Let me try this again. Sorry. If anybody just tuned in for 10 minutes of me talking and there being no sound. Sorry. This is my first live in a really long time. I've also been messing with all the like shortcut buttons on my above my numbers bar. I don't know what you call it. Anyways, I've been messing with all the shortcut buttons, and apparently I hit the there's a no microphone button. Didn't realize I had hit it. Also wasn't looking at down on the bottom of my screen here. There's little like green dots next to a microphone that like when I am talking, that like the green dots show up. I didn't realize this until the shout out to Evolver Reptiles for letting me know that there was no sound. Hello, Matt. Thanks for stopping. If you were watching earlier, you should have told me that there was no sound. Like I was telling all sorts of stories for 10 minutes and nobody told me. Totally fine. I guess I'll start all over at the beginning and hopefully be slightly more concise this time than I was last time. So if you notice, I have a very different backdrop than my previous live videos and almost like any of my videos in general. And that's because I'm in a different location. I moved. I have been pretty freaking MIA since about October. And so where that all started is, if you don't know, my husband and I, which is weird for me to say husband, it's still really new. My husband and I bought this 140-year-old building at the end of 2020 or beginning of 2022. And we have been renovating it for like the last 2 years, and with the intention of living upstairs instead of my parents' basement. And down here where I'm sitting right now are like our offices, and what I'm going to end up using is like studio space for podcasts and things like that. So in October, it would have been like the second week of October, somewhere around like October 10th. Upstairs was done enough that we could finally move in upstairs. But down here was still a very active construction zone. Lots of trim work and all that kind of stuff was still happening down here. But we could move in upstairs. So we did that. So the day that we moved, like I've had this really weird elbow thing all year. And it was like bursitis, which my dad gets bursitis a lot. But anyways, mine ended up septic. So I ended up my whole elbow was like the size of a golf ball. And when we were moving in, like I almost had to have Willie drive me to the hospital because it was that bad. I waited a couple days just to figure out if it was going to be okay or not. And it didn't really get better and it was still hurting. So I finally like broke down and went to the doctor. I was on 10 days of antibiotics to get rid of it, but they got rid of it and it's gone, which is nice. But so that was my October. And then, so in October, like we moved in and I was like, you know what, I'm going to schedule our open houses for the week after Thanksgiving, because for sure, like we'll be totally done down here. We need to get all the people in to come see the space. So like, let's do it then. Yay, sound. Yeah, thank you. I had no idea. Now I know that there's sound. Sorry about that. Anyways, so I planned those open houses at the end of November, and I was like, we'll definitely have plenty of time to get everything, finishing touches, all stuff done. It's not how it ended up. It's fine. We had a presentable space. It was mostly done. It's still mostly done. We'll get it like the rest of the way over the line beginning of next year. It's really just aesthetic things. It's like backsplash on our coffee bar and an actual like live edge bar top down here. It just took a really long time to get the live edge planed the way that we needed it. So it's fine. It is what it is. We'll get it sorted. So October we moved in. November we were still working. I, for some reason, decided that it was a good idea for me to host my first Thanksgiving just weeks after we had moved into this new space, and just like 5 days before we were supposed to have a party in here. Retrospect, terrible idea, whatever. It'll be less stressful next year, I think. So hosted Thanksgiving, and then 5 days later we had our open houses. First one, we had more of a like food and drink, like sort of a thank you for all the people who helped make it happen. So all of our contractors and county supervisors, economic development, like Ames Chamber, all of those guys. That was the first night. And then the second night was open to the public. So it was open to everyone to come check out the building and just see what we had done over the last 18 months. It was cool to get people in here in the space and get some real-time feedback and things like that. Willie finally figured out that like it was really cool. Like it was a really cool place. It was really nicely designed. Like he didn't believe me, but it's fine. So we did that last week of November. And then that following weekend, after those parties, we had a family wedding. Willie was the best man. It was Willie's stepbrother, and Willie's stepbrother was the best man, and they were getting married not very far from here. And so they did the rehearsal dinner across the road. So we were just involved. It was just a lot. So we did that, and then the next week I decided to go talk to the accountant to figure out what we needed to get done for the end of the year. And I asked him, because Willie and I got engaged in July, didn't really make a big thing of it. We were going to elope no matter what. I am just not interested in the wedding industrial complex and being part of it. I have a lot better things to spend my money and my time on. And so I just didn't. I never wanted one. And so it worked out. So we decided we didn't know where, we didn't know when. And so I asked our accountant, like, if you were us, would you get married before year end, or would you just wait till next year? And he said, just get it done this year. And so we did. So I had to go figure out how to get married, because that's like something that, who teaches you how to get married? Nobody. So I had to go apply for the license. We had 3-day waiting period or whatever it is in Iowa. I think it's 3 days. And then we could legally get married anywhere in the state. And we just decided courthouse and City of Ames. It's usually done at City Hall. They only do it on 1 day a week. And so I called them, and they didn't have any appointments until after the first of the year. But luckily in Des Moines, you can go to the historic downtown courthouse, which is absolutely stunning. If you've never been, just go pop in. Like, it's a really cool building. But so we just walked in, and because we didn't want a ceremony, we just wanted a signature. We just had to wait for the next available judge, and she signed it. We took some pictures, and that was it. His parents and my parents, so his mom and stepdad, and then my mom and dad were our witnesses. We needed 2 witnesses. So I thought, 4 of them are the most invested in us, shall we say. So I thought it would be great for them to be the witnesses and them to witness the signature, which it was just a piece of paper. And I decided that everybody should wear Christmas sweaters because it was the 21st of December. So that's what we did. We wore Christmas sweaters to the courthouse, and then we all went out to lunch, and it was great. We were home by 2:30, 3 o'clock. And as soon as we sat down on the couch, Willie said, if we had a traditional wedding, I'd be exhausted at this point in the day, and we'd probably only be done with pictures. And I said, yeah, and that wouldn't have been fun. No, wouldn't want to do that. So we didn't. We'll end up having a party next year, in the summer. But so yeah, we got married. That is the other big life update. A lot of people already thought we were married. We were not. We weren't even engaged until this summer. But we've almost been together for 6 years. So at this stage, So moved, got married, still doing the crickets. Always assume, even if I'm not on here, crickets are getting taken care of. So then the other thing on top of all of that, which I can't really talk about, but I'm getting cast for a TV show. So I've had to do all of the things that go with that as well, in a very short amount of time on top of everything. So needless to say, that's why I have not been around. So I have not been posting a lot of things, but that's just kind of where we're at. But now that we have this new space, I don't know if you saw it earlier, I uploaded a trailer for my new podcast called Building in a Small Town, where I am going to talk about and interview people who are building things in small towns, because I just think that it's sort of one of those things that is something I'm going through right now and trying to figure out, we have these 3 spaces that we bought in the last 4 years in this little tiny town. What should we do with them? What's the best way for us to utilize them? So yeah, I just am really excited to to talk to people, find out what they're building, find out what potential resources are available. So I do want to talk to like people in rural development, USDA, IEDA, like things like that, because it's just, I think it'll be very interesting. So that will be coming soon. First episode is just going to be me talking about my story and how I wound up in this little tiny town that I thought I'd never be in. And then the second episode is going to be me and my husband, because I need to figure out how to record with another person without totally screwing it up. So I can figure out editing and all of that stuff, because I'm doing all the editing and all the things. I think that I figured out how to upload a podcast. I hope to all of the like different streams and things. Spotify, I know for sure I got it up there, but the rest of it, I don't know. I'm winging it. I'll figure it out. Which I think is just kind of how I do things. I just figure it out. So those are the major life updates. Like I said, some of the things coming up I can't really talk about, and also don't know if it's like actually happening. So that is where we are. But so the main reason that I wanted to hop on and do one of these lives, and actually I got this email originally back in November, and when I got it, I was like, oh, this will make a really good live. And then here we are, not until the end of December, getting to what I needed it to be. And it's troubleshooting a cricket farm that has been up and running for, I think, a year. It's been up and running for at least a significant amount of time, that they, have gone through a couple rounds, have seen a couple recurring problems and things like that. So I did just want to, for the benefit of everyone, go through the email, go through the questions, and just talk about the feedback that I gave to him. And he's all the way from Slovenia. So if at some point he is watching, I think you say his name Matej. You spell it Matej. So I'm not entirely certain. I think that's how you say it, is Matej. But my Slovenian pronunciation is not super great. So the email reads, "Hello, do you still remember me? 1 year ago, we were in contact regarding cricket farming. I'm from the EU, Slovenia, and I want to start my own production. So, excuse me. I did tell him that, yes, I did remember him. So he said, quick update. I managed to organize a suitable isolated space and already raised a couple generations of crickets. Smaller quantity, only a few bins of 1,000 or so. Now that I've tried it in reality, I've run into a few problems. I'd really appreciate if you could help me with some of the questions." Which, like, what he did, great, wonderful. That's what I tell people. Like, before you dump a whole bunch of money, time, resources, all the things into starting a cricket farm, like, go really try it on a very small scale and see if you like it, or see if you can like figure out some of the basics, like, like this is a recurring theme. Like, before I scale this at all, maybe I should kind of figure out what I can do to fix it. Or is it a fixable problem? And this is just sort of what happens. So well done for doing this. Okay, so here are his questions. How do you handle the poop? How often do you clean the bins? Is even. I notice that if I don't clean regularly, the poop accumulates and starts to mold, which is smelly. So right away, just in this question, I already know of a problem that he has and something that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, he's going to have further problems. And that his humidity is too high. Humidity is too high. He doesn't have proper ventilation. Like, immediately when I hear that the poop, and I assume this is just, I don't know how fluent he is in English. I don't know if he used like Google Translate. I don't know. But so I assume when he says it accumulates, it kind of like clumps up, sort of a thing, which cricket frass under proper conditions should be sort of like sand. Like, it's not, I don't mean like as fine of a grain as sand, but it should be kind of like sand in that it's dry, easy to scoop, like doesn't leave a whole bunch of like residue or film or anything like that. Like, it'll leave dust, but it won't. It should be dry is the main thing. And so for me, like, I don't clean out the bins at all in between hatch and harvest. Like they are just, it's in there. And as long as you have the humidity right, you are not going to cause any problems. When your humidity is too high and or your ventilation is not correct, that's when you start to run into mold problems. So that was already red flag number 1. I told him that. Second, do your crickets sometimes die randomly too? Example, 5 to 10 days in the later growth period. So this is second indication that you have a ventilation problem. So yes, the crickets do have like mass die-offs. Sure, like you could potentially have some sort of virus, but it's super unlikely, like super, super, super unlikely. You could, depending on where you got your original crickets from. But if you've never had it in the past and you haven't had anyone in or any additional insects in that are from an outside source, you should not have a virus problem. Granted, like, yes, if you changed your feed source, if you changed your water, like if you're changing different variables, different conversation. But just based off of the first question that he asked, and then now with the second question, I'm guessing that he's got a ventilation issue where either ventilation is non-existent, humidity is too high, there's something wrong there. Typically, like the smaller crickets are generating less gases and less waste and all of the things. And so you won't notice that it's a problem until you start to get to later stages. And then you'll have sudden die-offs and you don't know why. Like I said, some people will think that it is a virus issue, but generally speaking, probably not. Do you use finely ground food? I notice that they don't eat larger pieces of feed. So my food is finely milled. I've said it before and I will say it again. I get my feed from BioForge Labs in Huxley, Iowa. It's the insect diet, non-GMO insect diet with meat. And it works great. It's not like super fine ground, like it's not powdered. I would say that it is somewhere between what would I call it? Probably like cornmeal, maybe a little coarser than cornmeal, but it's definitely not crumbles. If you're experienced with chickens at all, it's not crumbles. Fun fact that pellets, like feed is pelletized so that it's less accessible to insects. So pellets don't work very well. So yes, finely ground is the way to go. How long do you leave the tray with soil in the bin, and when do you put it inside for the eggs? So typically, anywhere from 24 to 72 hours is how long I am leaving the breeding trays in. Sometimes 24 hours, if you have a really densely populated bin. During the summer, this happens a lot. I need to be switching every 24 hours. Generally speaking, though, 48 hours works great. If I am either like really strapped for time, I can push it to 72, but 48 is usually my general rule of thumb. And then when do you put the bins in? This is a little bit more of an art than a science. You don't want to put them in too early because it's wasted labor, like you won't get any eggs. And I would say you don't want to put it in too late either, because if you do an open bin system like me, you start having escapees because you didn't give them any substrate to lay their eggs in. So I don't recommend that either. So I say when the males are like really loud chirping. So if you've ever been around the crickets when they first start chirping, like they'll chirp once or twice and then just kind of let it go. But when the males are really singing, that's a good indication, but it's not the best indication. Best indication is to look at the females. If you look into a bin and the majority of your females are fully developed, meaning they have a fully developed ovipositor, it looks like a little needle rather than just a little spike, or like, I'm talking a little stub between the last instar and the fully mature adult, like that is your indication of when you should be putting the breeding tray into the cricket bin. If you look in that bin and you see more fully mature females than not, it's definitely time. If you come into your space and you have an open tray, open bin system like I do, females will be all over the floor telling me that they need somewhere to lay their eggs. They aren't actually telling me that, but you get what I'm saying. So not too early, but not too late. Probably not the most helpful, but it is what it is. Do you remove food from bins before harvesting so they can empty their bowels? No, I don't. I don't do any fasting of the crickets because the crickets aren't going to fast. I know, and I don't see it as much in the media anymore, but I used to see a lot, and I would think it was from people that just hadn't been cricket farming very long, that they like take away the food in the water for the last 24 hours to like make sure that they're cleared out. You're not clearing them out. They will eat. They will eat each other. They will eat their housing. They will eat things they're not supposed to if you take away the food that they're supposed to eat. Leave the food in there. As long as your food is high quality, trusted source, don't worry about it. Honestly, like the actual turning it into food thing happens in the processing process. And you definitely need a high quality of feed, just because crickets are finicky. But no, I don't fast my crickets. Like it's just, you're not fasting them. You can, if it makes you feel better mentally, that's fine, but like it's not reality. You will have increased cannibalism, you'll have increased die-off, unnecessary stress, like all of the things. There's no reason to do that. So I don't. And then his final question, how long and at what temperature do you roast the crickets? So I think that I have a video about like my whole process of making roasted crickets, like the actual dehydration, but maybe I don't. But so freezer first and then boiled, rinsed, and then dehydrated. So I dehydrate them at 165 degrees for about 18 hours. And that's 165 degrees Fahrenheit, not Celsius. Which I don't know if I made that abundantly clear in my reply. I'd have to go look. But we get them really dry. I just think they taste better that way, but that's just personal opinion. And then he had one other question. He said, why do you put sand in the trays on the soil in the video? Because whatever video he watched, I was putting sand on my breeding trays. And if you missed that video in the summer, I had a fungus gnat problem. So that's one thing about cricket farming is that like you are creating an environment that is insect friendly, like conducive to insects thriving. You don't necessarily get to choose which insects like it. And then you also don't really have a good way of getting rid of them. So fungus gnats thrive in a moisture-rich environment, shall we say, and incubators tend to be moisture-rich. So the problem I was having is that these fungus gnats were laying their eggs in my breeding trays, and then the larvae were hatching before my eggs were hatching, and then the larvae were eating my eggs. It was not great. So the way that I combated that and got rid of that was I put a thin layer of sand over the top of the peat moss that I was using, because it just ended up working better. Like the fungus gnats, for one reason or another, don't like the sand. I think it has to do with the moisture retention or lack thereof of sand. So I was doing a layer of the sand over top to help reduce the amount of the fungus gnats. I still have some. They're not as bad. I quit putting the sand on them for the winter because it's that much drier in the barn during the winter. So they don't seem to be as big of a problem. Like they're still there, and like there's a few breeding trays that I probably lose because of it. But I haven't really had any problems with getting the barn full. So that was why I was using sand on the breeding trays over the summer, just because I had a massive infestation of fungus gnats. So if you run into that, sand is your best friend. There are actually, I think in like Thailand and other parts of Southeast Asia where they have cricket farms, they use sand as their actual breeding substrate. So you can get away with doing that as well if you would prefer to do that. And you just end up using sand as a breeding substrate. I haven't done it, but you can. There's no reason. Like the eggs will hatch as long as you keep that sand moist enough to deal with it. If I have a big fungus gnat problem again, I might give it a try. So anyways, so yeah, like I said, I emailed him back, and this would have been in November 6th, according to this email that I printed out. You guys are always welcome to email me questions if you have them. I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can on them. And do know that, like, if you do send me a whole long list of questions, I might turn it into a live video like this because it's kind of content that creates itself. And then I don't have to think about it. So yeah, thanks for listening to all my life updates. And I will attempt to get back to creating more Cricut content. It feels like I've talked about all of it, the basics and all the things. So for right now, I don't know what longer form content that I can do on the Cricut side. It's just whatever questions you have, if there keeps being like a recurring theme that comes up, maybe I'll do an extended video about things like ventilation and humidity control and pest control and stuff like that. But I kind of would need to go back through the whole library of things that I've done because I don't really want to like recreate the same content. That being said, like there's a lot of things that I might have uploaded that like I've just changed procedures on, things that I do differently, things that like ended up being really important, things that are like not important at all. So just kind of figuring out the good balance of those. So yeah, I definitely won't be doing lives weekly, I don't think, unless it's some other content. But yeah, I did, like I said, I got this email from my friendly Slovenian Cricut farmer, Mate, I think is his name, like I said, who sent me an email that he had started his Cricut farm and the things that he was having problems with. So thanks for being here. Sorry about if you tuned into the first 10 minutes of the failed live where I didn't realize I had my microphone off and I talked for 10 minutes. Sorry. Thank you to Evolver Reptiles for letting me know that I did that because I just didn't even dawn on me. So anyways, have a very happy new year if I don't hear from you. Anyways, see ya.